Now let's move on to in selectors. In keyword. Now let us see how we can leverage the in keyword for a specific data collection. In keyword helps you search value for the list of values. It can also be used as an alternative of OR operator. Let's see the usage of in keywords with example. We have a table. The table name is user activity of a search engine. This table contains information about user ID, their query, what pages are clicked, etc. It has 4 rows and 6 columns. Now, I want to get the rows where user ID is only 1 or 2. Just by looking at it, you can tell that which row will not be in the output. Can you spot it? Where the user ID is only 1 or 2. Of course, this is the row that should not be part of the output, right? Which is user ID 3. So, we see that what we was required over here as per the question is user ID is only 1 or 2. Of course, user ID 3 is neither 1 nor 2. That's why this is eliminated from our output and we got the output as 1 or 2 without user ID 3. And the output is that you will get the first 2 rows, right? 1 and 2, and then also the third row, which is 1. Why? Because user ID is also 1 over here. So this is what we wanted. Now we also need to see how we can achieve the same thing with SQL. How would you write the SQL query? Please pause the video and try to write it yourself. Alright, here it is. What we have written is select star from user activity. That's the table that we are getting the data from, where user ID in and in brackets we are giving 1, 2. As usual, we select all the rows from the input table, user activity. Then we have to write the filter. And what is the filter condition that we have? The condition is on the column user ID. What is the possible list of values that I want to filter my data on? That is 1 or 2. This is quite straightforward. Let's run this in the Metabase. So first of all, as usual, what we will do? We will check how a table looks like. That is user activity table, right? User activity. This is what we want to look at. So let's run this. Let's see what we have, which is select star from user activity table. This is the table name. Let's execute this query. Great. So we got 6 columns and 4 rows over here with different details about each user ID, what is their query ID, what query they used, how many pages were shown, were clicked, and what is the engagement. So all these information we got. Now, what we are looking for is, we are looking only for users with user ID 1 or 2. So what do we want over here is, this is what we are trying to achieve. Let's write this. We have just now seen the query. Select star from user activity. This is the table that we have. And what column we want to do a filter on. So when we are filtering, what is the command that we use? That is where. Which column we want to filter on? That is user ID. So let's write. It is user underscore ID. Where user ID in, what is the condition? What is the list that we have over here? 1, 2. Done. So we have written the required code. Let's run this, and this is the output that we have. So if you look at the syntax, and then we will of course go to the output. Let's first see the query or the syntax that we have. If you look at the syntax, you will see that the first of all, we are selecting all the columns from user activity, then giving a condition with where clause. And what we are using in where clause? We are using in. Okay, we are using in for which column? column name is user ID. The keyword that we are using is in. So this part after the where clause means that select the user IDs where we have one or the two. It is not and, it is or the two. And if you see the output that we have executed, we got 3 rows as we were seeing previously few seconds back also. Only user ID 3 is not present over here. If you see, only the user IDs with 1 or 2 came as the output. We got 3 rows as the output, right? Great. So now back to our usual table, which we always get into, that is the employee detail table. And this time we are not going to see the table. We are pretty much well versed with that. Let's directly jump into the query. And what we are trying to achieve over here is, let's say we want to find a list of employees who work for department sports, toys, or games. This is the or condition. I want the list of employees who are either working in sports or toys or games department, right? Suppose there is a new product launch and the organization wants to send information or emails to only those employees who are working in sports, toys, or games. So let's write this query. What we are trying to achieve is, so let's see how to write it. Select star. Of course, all the rows are getting selected. From, you mention which table you want the details from. That is from employee detail. Where department, I want to filter data based on department. That's why where department in. What are the conditions of the department, or for which department I want the details? We want for sports. Then we want for toys. And then we want for games. These can't come together. There's no and. These are all. So I want a list of all the departments for which I want the details. That's why we have written this. Let's execute. And we got the output over here. If you see, we have got good amount of rows. And if you see over here, all the departments that are listed, we can see it is sports or toys or games. There is no fourth department being listed apart from these 3, right? Out of all the departments, only these 3 are listed out of a total of 27 different departments that we have. We have only 3 listed over here, as that is what our condition was. Okay, so we have achieved this. So here's the syntax. First, we are selecting the columns we want to get. This is a table from where we retrieve the data. At the end, we have the where clause. This line means print the rows of the column where the value of variable 1 of column n is either value 1 or value 2 or so on and so forth, right? So let us look at a different usage of in operator. Now, apart from the user activity of a search engine, we also have a table called user, which has user ID, language, and their country and city information. Now, find a user activity data of Indian users. This means from the user activity table, I want to print the users who are from India, right? First, in this user table, see who lives in India. Check the user ID of that user. That is user ID 3. Now let us see if the user activity table, which is having the details about the activity of each and every user, is having user ID 3 or not. Because user ID 3 is the one that is living in India. So this observation we have. Yes, we have the entry present. So we got the output that this is the user ID, which is 3, and this person is from India. We got query ID, we got the query details and other things for that user ID. I have highlighted the output row in blue. Now let's write the SQL code to accomplish the same. According to the problem, we need to find the user activity data. So we write this piece of code, that is select star from user activity. Okay. But then to get the data of only Indian users, we need to find out which user is staying in India, right? So we need to look at a different table or a different place. At the starting, we are having a different query, and inside bracket, we are having a different query as well. This kind of queries are called subquery. We are going to learn about these queries later, but for now, let us understand this. This query inside is giving me the user ID, where the user country starts with I, and we are using like keyword to do that. Okay. Then the output of this query is taken by the starting query. So first of all, we got the user ID from country India, because that is the country starting with I. From user table, we got these details, and then for that user ID, we print all the user activity, and therefore we solve the problem. So if you see over here, what we are doing, this inside query is helping you to get the user ID of the person or of the user who is residing in a country which is starting with I. So select user ID from user, where user country like I, and then percentage. Now the output of that means we will get one user ID, right? Or we can get more user ID also. Output of that is being consumed with the starting query, that is select star from user activity, where user ID in. So whatever you have the list, or whatever you get the output, that would be consumed as the list by the starting query. Great. So now let's see the output in Metabase. Okay. So what we want is, and just since we have learned about like keyword, we will try to keep it with country where the user is residing and the country name starts with I. So let's use that also. Okay. So select star from which table? User activity details are definitely in user activity table. So user activity, this is the table. What we want to find out? We want to find out the user ID. We want to filter based on the user ID over here. There could be multiple user IDs who are residing in India, but in user activity table, I don't have that information available, right? So what we will do is that we will write a subquery. From, this is another table which is giving me this information, whether the person is residing in country starting with I, that is India as of now, or not. So where from user, this is the table where I, it should start with I, right? So wildcard percentage after that. Let's execute this piece. And we don't have a table as user ID because system automatically took this as user as we pressed enter. So let's be vigilant about that also. The table name is user. Okay. Let's execute this now. Still, user is not present because this is case sensitive many a times. The name of the table starts with capital U. Okay. These are small things which we make mistake many a times. If you see, we got one row as the output. This is the desired output. User ID is 3. This is the query ID. Use the query that user is using. It's famous cafe in Delhi NCR. Page showed is 12. Page clicked is this. And this is the engagement. Okay. So what we did over here is, first of all, in this inner query or in this subquery, we try to get the user ID of the user who is residing in India. How we will get that? Select user ID from user table where country ID like I. It is starting with I, right? So we will get the number of user ID. In our case, user ID is 3. Now that user ID is being used to fetch you the details about that user. That is select star from user activity where user ID, and it will take the list of user IDs that you have which are residing in country which is starting with I. Okay. So now what we will do is we will get employees from cubic region. Okay, employees from cubic region. So over here, we are taking the tables which are region and employee detail. We want to find out the employee from region cubic. Let us first look at a table employee detail, and then we will look at the regions table also. So let's do one by one. First is the employees table. So what we have is, of course, we have seen this table, but let's see it once again. Employee detail. This is the table that we want the information from. So let's execute this. And this is the table that we have. You guys are pretty much well versed. Let's look at the region table also. Okay. So let's do a select star from which table we want. That is the regions table. Let's look at this table also. Great. So this table has 3 columns with 7 rows, which tells you the region ID, region and country. Now we have got the details of employee ID and region ID. Okay. So we have a region ID for cubic region, that is region ID 6, and we need to get the employees detail who are belonging to region cubic. But in employees table, if you see, we don't have any column which tells us, if you see, we don't have any column which tells us the name of the region. We just have region ID. So we know that there is a region ID 6 also, like this. Region ID 6 is there, which means it is region cubic, right? So what we want is, what we are trying to achieve over here is employee details for region, and what is the name of the region? That is cubic region. Okay, let's first, of course, write the query. So select star. We are selecting all the rows over here. I want employee details. So that will come from employee details table, right? So it would be from employees detail. Okay. On what basis I need to do the filtration to get the details about the employees who belongs to region cubic? That is, of course, region ID. So region ID. But do I know which region ID represents cubic? Yes, you have checked it manually. We know it is 6, but I don't want to hard code it. Sometime it might be changed. Something else is changed over here. Instead of 6, it becomes 10 or something else, right? So in that case, I want my system to automatically know that which region ID belongs to region cubic. So that's where I'm writing the subquery in select region ID from, these details are in which table? From regions table, right? And what I have is where region, like it starts with Q. Okay, because cubic is starting with Q, right? So let's execute this. And we got the output. If you see, everyone over here, all the employees are having the result as region ID 6 only, right? In the result, we have region ID 6 only, and different employees, all the details have been populated. So what your inner query or the subquery did, it picked up the region IDs for which the region name starts with Q. Then using that region ID, the starting query fetched the employee details from the employee details table, and it used the region ID which was given by the subquery. Okay. So we saw what is like, what is in, how we can combine that. We also saw some part of subquery. Of course, it would be covered later in detail, but as of now, we used it over here as well. These are the syntaxes that you have. Okay. So now, what we are looking for is our syntax 2, right? This is our syntax, this second one. How we are achieving it? As usual, we are getting it through a subquery, which we have seen over here. The first thing that in a subquery we do is that we write a select statement, and that's what is your subquery. Output of the subquery is taken by this part of the query with this part, that is the starting query, right? Which works similarly like syntax 1. Now let us look at how we are going to use other keywords as well.